Hello, everybody. Today we are starting the book of Exodus. This is part 17 of reading the entire Catholic Bible. It's been 2 weeks since I started college, my second semester, and this is the first opportunity I've gotten to sit down since it has started. But what a way to begin my first part with the college schedule than starting the second book of Genesis on my second semester of college at the end of the second week of the semester. Anyways, here we go. Chapter 1, Jacob's Descendants in Egypt. These are the names of the sons of Israel who, accompanied by their households, entered into Egypt with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of Jacob's direct descendants was 70. Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and that whole generation died, but the Israelites were fruitful and prolific. They multiplied and became so very numerous that the land was filled with them. The oppression. Then a new king who knew nothing of Joseph rose to power in Egypt. He said to his people, "See, the Israelite people have multiplied and become more numerous than we are. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them to stop their increase. Otherwise, in time of war, they may too join our enemies to fight against us, so leave the land." Accordingly, they set supervisors over the Israelites to oppress them with forced labor. Thus they had to build for Pharaoh the garrison cities of Pithom and Ramses. Yet the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians began to loathe the Israelites. So the Egyptians reduced the Israelites to cruel slavery, making life bitter for them with hard labor at mortar and brick and all kinds of field work, cruelly oppressed in all their labor. Cruelly oppressed in all their labor. Command to the midwives. The king of Egypt told the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was called Sifra and the other Puah, "When you act as midwives for the Hebrew women, look on the birth stool. If it is a boy, kill him, but if it is a girl, she may live." The midwives, however, feared God. They did not do as the king of Egypt had ordered them, but let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this, allowing the boys to live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are robust and give birth before the midwife arrives." Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very numerous. And because the midwives fear God, God built up families for them. Pharaoh then commanded all his people, "Throw into the Nile every boy that is born, but you may let all the girls live." Chapter 2. Birth and adoption of Moses. I was wondering when we were going to get introduced to Moses. I knew he was the author of the first 5 books, and I was intrigued. Like, was he going to be introduced at the end of Genesis? But looks like beginning of Exodus is where we get to read about Moses. Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and the woman conceived and bore a son. Seeing what a fine child he was, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took a papyrus basket, daubed it with the bitumen and pitch, and putting the child in it, placed it among the reeds of the bank of the Nile. His sister stationed herself at a distance to find out what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe at the Nile, while her attendants walked along the bank of the Nile. Noticing the basket among the reeds, she sent her handmaid to fetch it. On opening it, she looked, and there was a baby boy crying. She brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, for she said, "I drew him out of the water." Moses' flight to Midian. On one occasion, after Moses had grown up, when he had gone out to the kinsmen and witnessed their forced labor, he saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his own kinsmen. Looking about and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out again, and 2 Hebrews were fighting. So he asked the culprit, "Why are you striking your companion?" But he replied, "Who has appointed you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses became afraid and thought, "The affair must certainly be known." When Pharaoh heard of the affair, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to the land of Midian. There he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. But shepherds came and drove them away. So Moses rose up in their defense and watered their flock. When they returned to their father Reuel, he said to them, "How is it you have returned so soon today?" They answered, "An Egyptian delivered us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "Where is he?" he asked his daughters. "Why did you leave the man there? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with him, and the man gave Moses his daughter Zipporah in marriage. She conceived and bore a son, whom he named Gershom, for he said, "I am a stranger residing in a foreign land." The call and commission of Moses, the burning bush. A long time passed, during which the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned under their bondage and cried out, and from their bondage their cry for help went up to God. God heard their moaning, and God was mindful of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God saw the Israelites, and God knew. Chapter 3. Meanwhile, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. Leading the flock beyond the wilderness, he came to the mountain of God, Horeb. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him as fire flaming out of a bush. When he looked, although the bush was on fire, it was not being consumed. So Moses decided, "I must turn aside to look at the remarkable sight. Why does the bush not burn up?" When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to look, God called out to him from the bush, "Moses, Moses," he answered, "Here I am." God said, "Do not come near. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. I am the God of your father," he continued, "the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. The call and commission of Moses. But the Lord said, "I have witnessed the affliction of my people in Egypt and have heard their cry against their taskmasters. So I know well what they are suffering. Therefore I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and led them up from the land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now indeed the outcry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen how the Egyptians are oppressing them. Now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God answered, "I will be with you, and this will be your sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will serve God at this mountain." "But," said Moses to God, "if I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what do I tell them?" God replied to Moses, "I am who I am." Then he added, "This is what you will tell the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" God spoke further to Moses. "This is what you will say to the Israelites, 'The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you.' This is my name forever. This is my title for all generations. Go and gather the elders of the Israelites and tell them, 'The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me and said, I have observed you and what is being done to you in Egypt. So I have decided to lead you up out of your affliction in Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to you. Then you and the elders of Israel will go to the king of Egypt and say to him, 'The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has come to meet us. So now let us go a 3 days' journey in the wilderness to offer sacrifice to the Lord our God. Yet I know that the king of Egypt will not allow you to go unless his hand is forced. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wondrous deeds I will do in its midst. After that he will let you go. I will even make the Egyptians so well disposed toward the people that when you go, you will not go empty-handed. Every woman will ask her neighbor and the resident alien in her house for silver and gold articles and for clothing, and you will put them on your sons and daughters. So will you plunder the Egyptians. Let's try and get in one more. Chapter 4. But, objected Moses, suppose they do not believe me or listen to me, for they may say, the Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, what is in your hand, a staff? He answered. God said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and Moses backed away from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, now stretch out your hand and take hold of its tail. So he stretched out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a staff in his hand. That is so they will believe that the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, did appear to you. Again the Lord said to him, put your hand into the fold of your garment. So he put his hand into the fold of his garment, and when he drew it out, there was his hand covered with scales like snowflakes. Then God said, put your hand back into the fold of your garment. So he put his hand back into the fold of his garment, and he drew it out. There it was again, like his own flesh. If they do not believe you or pay attention to the message of the first sign, they should believe the message of the second sign. And if they do not believe even these two signs and do not listen to you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry land. The water you take from the Nile will become blood on the dry land. Aaron's office as assistant. Moses, however, said to the Lord, if you please, my Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor now that you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, who gives one person speech? Who makes another mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will assist in speaking and teach you what you are to say. But he said, if you please, my Lord, send someone else. Then the Lord became angry with Moses and said, I know there is your brother, Aaron the Levite, who is a good speaker. Even now he is on his way to meet you. When he sees you, he will truly be glad. You will speak to him and put the words in his mouth. I will assist both you and him in speaking and teach you both in what you are to do. He will speak to the people for you. He will be your spokesman, and you will be as God to him. Take this staff in your hand, and with it you are to perform the signs. Moses' return to Egypt. After this, Moses returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, let me return to my kindred in Egypt to see whether they are still living. Jethro replied to Moses, go in peace. Then the Lord said to Moses in Midian, return to Egypt, for all those who sought your life are dead. So Moses took his wife and his sons, mounted them on the donkey, and started back to the land of Egypt. Moses took the staff of God with him. The Lord said to Moses, on your return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have put in your power. But I will harden his heart, and he will not let the people go. So you will say to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, Israel is my son, my firstborn. I said to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. Since you refuse to let him go, I will kill your son, your firstborn. On the journey, at a place where they spent the night, the Lord came upon Moses and sought to put him to death. But Zipporah took a piece of flint and cut off her son's foreskin, and touching his feet, she said, surely you are a spouse of blood to me. So God let Moses alone. At the time she said, a spouse of blood, in regard to the circumcision. The Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. So he went. When meeting him at the mountain of God, he kissed him. Moses told Aaron everything the Lord had sent him to say, and all the signs he had commanded him to do. Then Moses and Aaron went and gathered all the elders of the Israelites. Aaron told them everything the Lord had said to Moses, and he performed the signs before the people. The people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had observed the Israelites and had seen their affliction, they knelt and bowed down. Let's do even one more after that, because this chapter doesn't seem too long. Chapter 5, Pharaoh's hardness of heart. Afterwards, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast for me in the wilderness. Pharaoh answered, who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord. I will not let Israel go. They replied, "The God of the Hebrews has come to meet us. Let us go a 3 days' journey in the wilderness, that we may offer sacrifice to the Lord our God, so that he does not strike us with the plague or the sword." The king of Egypt answered them, "Why, Moses and Aaron, do you make the people neglect their work? Off to your labors." Pharaoh continued, "Look how they are already more numerous than the people of the land, yet you would give them rest from their labors?" That very day Pharaoh gave the taskmasters of the people and their foremen this order: "You shall no longer supply the people with straw for their brick-making as before. Let them go and gather their own straw. Yet you shall levy upon them the same quota of bricks as they made previously. Do not reduce it. They are lazy. That is why they are crying. Let us go to offer sacrifice to our God. Increase the work for the men, so that they attend to it and not to deceitful words." So the taskmasters of the people and their foremen went out and told the people, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not provide you with straw. Go and get your own straw from wherever you can find it, but there will not be the slightest reduction in your work." The people then scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw, while the taskmasters kept driving them on, saying, "Finish your work, the same daily amount as when the straw was supplied to you." The Israelite foremen, whom the taskmasters of Pharaoh had placed over them, were beaten and were asked, "Why have you not completed your prescribed amount of bricks yesterday and today as before?" Complaint of the foreman. Then the Israelite foreman came and cried out to Pharaoh, "Why do you treat your servants in this manner? No straw is supplied to your servants, and still we are told, 'Make bricks. Look how your servants are beaten. Is it you who are at fault?'" He answered, "Lazy, you are lazy. This is why you keep saying, 'Let us go and offer sacrifice to the Lord.' Now off to work. No straw will be supplied to you, but you must supply your quota of bricks." The Israelite foremen realized they were in trouble, having been told, "Do not reduce your daily amount of bricks." So when they left Pharaoh, they assailed Moses from Aaron, who were waiting to meet them, and said to them, The Lord look upon you and judge. You have made us offensive to Pharaoh and his servants, putting a sword into their hands to kill us." Renewal of God's promise. Then Moses again had recourse to the Lord and said, "Lord, why have you treated this people badly? And why did you send me? From the time I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has treated this people badly, and you have done nothing to rescue your people." And we'll stop right there before chapter 6. This is on page 71. Who knows when I'll get to do another part with this crazy schedule I have and the plentiful amount of homework I'm given, which I'm about to go do now. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Goodbye.